Try and get me from my good side.
Which side is that?
The one that looks better.
All your sides.
You're sweet. 3.5.
Concerned with in terms of my poetry, because for me, I think the body is a problem and I don't like it. But in terms of Liz's poetry, it's the intense erotic aspect of a woman and her body has to go through. And in this day and age, it's the woman's body as a weapon is what Liz seems to be concerned with. So the terrible thing about a weapon being that its only thing that it can do is to cut. And cutting, it sort of becomes an absurdity, which Liz's poem does depict humor, where she says, my biorhythm is 98% similar to Nick Cage, who apparently went to jail, by the way. But so these aspects of her poetry is really astounding, and I'm really happy to introduce Liz. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to start with that particular poem. And there's a funny story about this one. It's called In Transit. And I met this drunken construction consultant. And just recently, I was at Penn Station again. I had missed my train. It happens often. And I'm in this bar, and I'm having a drink. And this guy says, "Hey, how you doing?" And he turns to me, and I'm like, "Fine." And he says, "Don't you remember we met?" And you know, I'm a construction guy. And I was like, "No." So, and then I had to say to him, "Oh, wow, I wrote a poem about you." And of course, we exchanged phone numbers, and he's been calling me ever since, but I haven't called him back. This is called In Transit. "You're a beautiful woman," said the drunken construction consultant at Tracks, the Penn Station waterhole with swivel chairs and sweet bartenders who ease the pain of missing that train by just 1 minute. "Let's keep in touch." He didn't tell me his name. Crazy full moon, bug orange and bright. Why don't I live in the city anymore? Suburbs suck passion and bleach marrow. Track lighting, track houses, train tracks, track marks. No, we'll banish that dirty thought. We'll just sweep that one away with the trash. I'm moonstruck. Hey, did you know my biorhythm and Nick Cage's are a 98% match? Somebody let him know, please. What? You don't believe in astrology? Blow me. No, really, blow me. Lonely, suffering full moon fever from the hoops on my ears to the glass shards of my ice nipples. I need this old train to break down. Orange is calming and prevails over fast food joints and train stations. Okay, I'm going to have to hold these things. It's too far away. This is called Meditation 36. I drink too much. Not sure where the need comes from. Seeking illumination. Why do I drink too much? What would Descartes say? Do I drink too much from physical desire? Is my vessel empty? Is my hunger calling for intoxication? Does the inebriating factor come from within me, or is some outside influence controlling the craving? Am I tired of seeing words on the page and not feeling hands on my breast? Are my fingers burned black from proximity and raw from rejection? Blame the evil demon? Blame God? Do I drink too much? If I lived in Paris, would the question exist? If I lived in Paris in the 1920s, would I exist? Is it wrong to lust after travel and time with the bottle? Why can't I have those hands on my breast? The candle melts. The wax evaporates. Did it exist? Did you receive pleasure from it? This is called I'm My Own Worst Enemy. Self-explanatory. In another life, I must have been a goading, crazy monk, whipping my back to shreds, crying tears of blood and lust, flailing at love's injustice. You see me as goddess, Diana on the hunt, I see me as fallen, arrow piercing flesh. Use your tongue, soothe, appease my sorrow prayer. Tear apart the silk, mount my damaged disaster. Be my master. Tortured torment, defeated, wide and broken, bracing nympholepsy. I want your hands, your mouth, your shuddering cock, not aiming for a ring. Lash me to your salted sting. Kneeling in repose, awakening to tragedy, begging prostrate, beating myself senseless, calling Empyrean angels from ashes, naked, lupine, bellicate, devouring an endless weight. Revisiting ancient burial ground. We blazed from room to room as if running the labyrinth at Knossos. Taking Theseus's challenge in the Minoan palace, we killed the Minotaur, bored through flesh and bone, our attenuated bodies, perfect proportions, meeting Praxiteles' standards. Tragic Greek gymnos. Volcanic like Pompeii, suffocating instantly in heat, the wet spot drying, sheets thrown to the wind. Phidian proportions be damned, and you in my mouth. My hard-won conquest, petrified before the waters evaporated. Your eyes travel centuries from my desire. They move inside again, turn to chiseled stone. Constantine guarding the basilica. No blood moon washing over my impatient lust. Only dust and aging. Our history will not create a brilliant fresco. My pain, our pleasure, my slavery, entombed, funereal reliefs, glazing, burning heathens, turning cycladic torture to art. This is called I Can't Fake It If I'm Not Feeling It. Days later, I'm still slipping on your spill. The oily gloss won't lift, even with bleach. My friend, my comrade, not my lover. Fluid exposition, twisted backwards, upside down. I came all over my face. Back inside he slithers while I sit and stare at my laughable self-created Schadenfreude. Google the silly girl who put it all out there. Watch her descend into the stink. Watch her self-debasing demeanor. Watch her make up stories and pretend the end is worth the means. Watch her flail at succulent self-discovery. Embrace the knowledge not allowed. Watch the teetering mulct. Revoke the heat, the beating blood, the bed. Watch her wring the very last cent from his exiguous passion. Okay, this is called Another Full Moon Poem. What if ownership of feeling belongs solely to the whims of gravitational pull? Stupid moon, you're just a mannequin. Nothing but a pretty, pearly oyster shell. Lead me around in circles while my doctor writes a paper cure. No matter if it makes me drive in my sleep, no matter if it removes synchronicity. Why place gems in my path? Why sit fat lighting the night sky, leaving only spikes and bombs buried in the dirt, waiting for the right foot to set them off? Let's see what I got here. Wait a second. Okay. Since it felt like spring today, kind of sort of, and I was in Washington Square Park and there were some tulips blooming and it was very cool, I decided I'll read spring poem. Okay, it's called Spring Poem. When I walked into Washington Square today, an Asian girl flashed her pussy at me. I'd like to think the exposure was innocent. I walked on with no comment and made my way to the pit where the tumble boys held court, drumming on big plastic pails and humping each other to look like puppets. After loud applause, the crowd dispersed, before they could tip their pots for tips. I passed Marky Mark, or Donnie Wahlberg. He didn't recognize me from MySpace. So I kept on walking. The folk guitar corner was rocking, and Tim Robbins was helping the man on the crate with the box on his head gather people to be in his rock video. The art girl spouted the ways of Warhol, while NYU students clustered and talked of overdue papers. A loud crash of cymbals welcomed the next set of nimble boys spinning tails on the fountain pit stage. Skateboard teens twisted and jumped over stairs, and a couple of young kids glided through puddles on razors. An old man on a bike with a psychedelic box blaring "I Will Survive" pedaled by. People laughed and rolled their eyes. Random comment overheard? Boring. What a moron. She doesn't know what she's missing by dissing this day. Dogs running wild in their big and little puppy parks, and tourists wandering around thinking about where to go as it begins to get dark. Lounging crowds on the sidewalk, amidst the dogwoods, budding, blooming, pink. Okay, this is a new one. Very new, so bear with me. It's called Writing Lies. This fleeting energy wants to betray me, wants to lie in trees with cardinals red, wings flapping wide, but I flee, dismiss reality. Paper molds the message. Exposition, interpretation, I don't have the slightest clue. This fantasy should be drawn in lines and parallelograms, not hidden in my paragraphs. My mind knows the difference, but isn't fantasy sweet? I'm losing balance now. It might be time to meet the present tense. This is another really new one called Shore Leave. Liminal boiling eyes, watching waves, continuing crests, lapping up the shore, pulling back. Coarsely ground salt eroding our brake line, devouring the sleek acre of untouched white sand filled with muddy refuse. Needles, tampons, plastic bags. I gave you depth. You dredged up garbage. Storms give weight to water. Electric pulse turns sand to glass. Glass is you and I, fragile, filled with fault. When lightning graces our storm, crystal sculptures take shape below the surface. Strong, solid, fragile, singing, holding shining mass. Why is the current too much to bear? And another beach poem, because I just like the beach. This is called Quell. When it quells, and waves take back the lapping desire, thin, balding fire, chest no longer heaving at chance encounters, the once-filled hourglass strips its last grains of sand. Do we bury it on the beach and hope for lightning to turn to glass? Can passion quelled be realized? The monthly pill ebbs and flows, some moons full to bursting, torrents of blood, gushing. Other moons bring steady drips, days and days on end. Does blood know passion lives? Does passion even exist? Crush equals crash. Miswired connects. I put the positive charge in the wrong socket, burned my fingertips black. Underground I hide, no longer seeking warmth, forgoing the wave's electric rush. The steady flow is gone, now trite, now boring. These tears have lost their salt. I have time for two more? I'm good? They're short, okay. All right, this one is just a, okay. I have time for two more? I'm good? They're short, okay. All right, this one is just a, okay, fun thing that's from my forthcoming collection. It's called Politic. Polybius brought his father's policy of neutrality back to Greece. Gymnos means naked. Politics will never be naked. That grid is sealed with envy, lust, power, and the occasional Cicero, hands cut off and nailed to a door, laying rules for others, caught and sealed in arenas and squares. Naked Olympics, though, could cause a rise in polls. And last one is, it's called Flash Upon My Grid, which is the title of my collection when it ever gets done. I see time and space in Excel spreadsheets. We live the invisible grid. The universe is patterned just so. I know this. Saw it on purple microdot. More than once. Arcana, waves and water, wind and fire, collide, each separated, intertwined, woven and consumed, strengthened, knotted. Electric pathos, lustful moments, coalesce. We reside in this square space. Can you see it? Thank you.
Really astounding, and I'm really happy to introduce Liz. Thank you.
Short person up at the mic. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to start with that particular poem. And there's a funny story about this one. It's called In Transit. And I met this drunken construction consultant. And just recently, I was at Penn Station again. I had missed my train. It happens often. And I'm in this
Poetry, it's the intense erotic aspect of a woman and her body has to go through. And in this day and age, it's the woman's body as a weapon is what Liz seems to be concerned with. So the terrible thing about a weapon being that its only thing that it can do is to cut. And cutting, it sort of becomes an absurdity, which Liz's poem does depict humor, where she says, my biorhythm is 98% similar to Nick Cage, who apparently went to jail, by the way. But so these aspects of her poetry is
And I swear to God, it was complete, like, it was like, ouch. But like, the rest of the day, I was like, is any good of it? No. I swear to God, the rest of the day, it was very great with that. That was really the turning point. Obviously, I was stressed.
And then negotiate.
Try and get me from my good side.
Which side is that?
The one that looks better.
All your sides.
You're sweet.
concerned with in terms of my poetry, because for me, I think the body is a problem and I don't like it. But in terms of Liz's
bar, and I'm having a drink, and this guy says, "Hey, how you doing?" And he turns to me, and I'm like, "Fine." And he says, "Don't you remember we met?" And you know, I'm a construction guy, and I was like, "No." So, and then I had to say to him, "Oh, wow, I wrote a poem about you." And of course, we exchanged phone numbers. He's been calling me ever since, but I haven't called him back. This is called In Transit. "You're a beautiful woman," said the drunken construction consultant at Tracks, the Penn Station waterhole with swivel chairs and sweet bartenders who ease the pain of missing that train by just 1 minute. "Let's keep in touch." He didn't tell me his name. Crazy full moon.